I watched the second season of Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power show recently, and I realized something. Sauron in this season is just Palpatine from the Star Wars prequels.
Kill him.
He's got the same manipulative, evil hiding just beneath the surface charm, and his conniving and scheming was one of the best parts of the season. Unfortunately, the season also paralleled the Star Wars prequels in having another character of such awfulness that the excellency of Sauron was just not enough to redeem things. So how did this happen? How, in a show that is generally acknowledged to fall somewhere on the quality spectrum between mediocre and bad, are there two wildly different adaptational takes on such iconic characters from The Lord of the Rings? Since we're discussing this, there will be spoilers for the first and second seasons of The Rings of Power, as well as the Lord of the Rings books. First off, let's give the creators of the Rings of Power a bit of sympathy. They were tasked with telling a story that is told in most of its detail in the Silmarillion and other non-Lord of the Rings books by J.R.R. Tolkien, while they only had the rights to use the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. So in the end, they are trying to tell a story to which they only have the legal right to the broad strokes, meaning most of the more detailed decisions they made about how things played out literally had to be different from the way that Tolkien wrote it, or they would be in violation of copyright law.
Do it.
So the creators are stuck with the unenviable task of creating a TV show for a fandom of very loyal and particular people who tend to want every detail to be true to their beloved books. And these creators know that they legally have to make some choices that are going to anger these fans. Because of this, I feel we ought to give some grace to the storytellers behind this show. On the flip side, though, this means that the changes they made on elements that they did have the rights to are even more egregious, since they had to intentionally decide to alter those things for their show. So, with that caveat out of the way, let's talk about the two different adaptational strategies that storytellers can take when adapting a book into a film or TV show, as exemplified by the polar opposite treatments of the characters of Sauron and Tom Bombadil in The Rings of Power. As I said at the beginning of the video, I think that the portrayal of Sauron in the second season of The Rings of Power was actually well done. After a very strange and rocky start with the nonsensical Halbrand mystery and reveal in the first season, The Rings of Power finally shows Sauron as he's described during this time period in the books. A deceiver who hides behind a mask of goodness to corrupt, destroy, and gain power. This works well because now, unlike in the first season, we in the audience know that this is Sauron, even though the characters do not. This creates what is known as dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is a great way to keep things interesting, even after you've revealed the answer to a mystery. In fact, it is often more interesting to see how the characters will act when we already know what they do not. You can create more tension and conflict as characters come closer and closer to discovering the truth that we, as the audience, want or don't want them to discover. The dramatic irony in Sauron's story leads to some of the best moments in the season as he manipulates Celebrimbor and the other elves to do what he wants.
And your rings, they will be deemed the most precious creations in all Middle-earth.
This is the Sauron of the books during this time period. Not the imposing dark lord that people expect, but a lesser lieutenant, using what skills he does possess to try to claim the authority of his fallen, far mightier master. At the end of the day, Sauron is not Morgoth. He can be defeated without a literal deus ex machina like Morgoth took. He may be very evil and he may be extremely powerful, but in the end, he's just a step down from the real big bad.
Shadow of Morgoth.
So, while there are certainly problems you can point to with the dialogue or the performance here and there, I think the comparison to the Star Wars prequels still holds true. Whatever problems you may have with the other story threads, when Palpatine, or in this case Sauron, is on screen, you know it's going to be entertaining. The adaptational strategy the show's creators took with Sauron is the one that you generally want in such situations. Changing details where necessary because of legal reasons or to fit the new medium, but keeping the essential aspects of the character so that they are both recognizable and acceptable to fans of the work that is being adapted. That, however, is not the strategy the show's creators took with the character of Tom Bombadil. There, they took the second, and sadly far more common, approach to adaptation. Keep the bare minimum from the source material and change everything else for little to no good reason. This is especially frustrating to me because Tom Bombadil is one of those characters that is just a ton of fun in the Lord of the Rings books. He serves no purpose to the main storyline, raises far more questions than he answers, and seems strange and out of place in the world the author is creating. And yet, these problems make him one of the most intriguing parts of the books. Who is this strange man with his yellow boots and his blue jacket, always singing silly songs and rambling through the forest, who is one of the only characters we see who is not only not tempted by the One Ring, but also not even affected by it? Tom is probably the strangest, most unique character in the Lord of the Rings books, so you would hope that some of that would carry over into the adaptation. Unfortunately, this is not the case. The Tom Bombadil we get in the Rings of Power Season 2 is mysterious, but only in the crazy wizard hermit cliche kind of way. Unlike in the books, he is present to advance the plot through exposition and cryptic sayings.
If these two flames combine into one, there will be no end to burning till all Middle-earth is ashes.
When he sings, it doesn't have the jolly, nonsensical feel of his songs in the books, but rather a quiet, melancholy kind of air. It seems to me like the writers needed a mysterious, mentor-like figure to guide Gandalf in his storyline and deliver some serious exposition to raise the stakes. Instead of creating a new character to do this, they transported Tom Bombadil from the opposite side of Middle-earth, made him darker and edgier, turned his wife Goldberry into a figment of Gandalf's imagination for some reason, and turned Tom himself into an exposition machine. This is what I was talking about while describing the second negative adaptational strategy. Taking a character from the original work and using them to serve the new story's needs by making them nearly unrecognizable.
Your friend or your destiny, the choice is yours.
So, if you're going to adapt an existing work into a new medium, remember the two adaptational strategies and choose wisely. If you adapt things with small changes that make sense and keep the spirit of the original, you'll be well on the way to success. If you instead choose to make massive changes for little to no reason, just to get the elements of the original work to conform to your new vision, be warned that this is a risky move that will almost always backfire. Hopefully this wasn't too scathing a critique of the Rings of Power. There are definitely good elements there, and there were some marked improvements in this second season. Perhaps this will be a show that will continue to build on those good elements and will fix the problems that still drag it down. My hopes are not exactly high, but they're not quenched yet. I'm AJ, and I hope you found this discussion of Rings of Power interesting. What other lessons, good or bad, have you learned about filmmaking and storytelling from this show? What other shows and films do you feel have done an excellent, or not so excellent job at adapting their source material? Let me know down in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Now, go out there and create stories.